why we do worship the way we do, and I think our heart has always been to parallel with the mission statement for the church, to reach out to the world around us and share the everlasting love of Jesus Christ. That's why we do worship the way we do. That's why we lead worship the way we lead. Everything we do has to partner with that mission statement, because it's not about Hope Worship. We kind of, you turned your hat backwards. We both wore our Hope Worship hats. He does all the time. I just woke up late. So Hope Worship has a name now. It has a brand, but that was never the goal. It just kind of has morphed into that, and it's being used. Why is Hope Worship what it is? Well, we're reaching out to the world around us, and we're sharing the everlasting love of Jesus Christ. That has to be what our heart is, because if it's not, then it's just self-promotion. And I think every ministry in the church has to take a look at that, and I think the church does a really good job of putting that mission statement first. Reach out to the world around us and share the everlasting love of Jesus through worship music. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just add, I've only been here 4 years, and just hearing the history that Perry has gone through with Hope and just the history of praise and worship here at Hope, I just feel like why we do worship the way we do, the style, I guess, it's always just kind of been refined, even from the beginning. Like, even before you were here, it was like just discovering what does Lutheran Church of Hope, West Des Moines, what do we sound like? What is our praise? What is our essence of our worship sound like? And I just feel like over the years it's developed and it's refined, and obviously through the leadership and stewardship of Perry and Alyssa, we've come this far, and I feel like over the last 4 years we've become more free in like flowing, like spontaneous moments. I feel like that has really grown lately. So worship style, I feel like that's why, but obviously it's our mission statement, yeah, like what Barry said, to reach out to the world around us and share the everlasting love of Jesus Christ. And through music, that looks like through different genres of worship styles. I feel like we've gone through every single style here at Hope, and I love that. So,
Jacob, you mentioned kind of worship styles and how West Des Moines specifically worships. What's the process look like for choosing songs for weekend services, or even Men of Hope or Revive or CR or anything? What's that process look like?
I mean, again, that has gone through so many different changes. We get a year's worth of kind of the overview of the year, week to week, in sermon series and the Bible reading for the day, the kind of one sentence summary of what that weekend is going to be about. Now, that's done a year ahead of time. So when Mike sits down and comes up with that, he's not particularly saying, this is what I'm going to preach on, or this is what so-and-so is going to preach on, because it could say this Bible verse and this thing, and he could preach on something completely different, or maybe just tie into it. We can't read his mind about what he's writing, his sermons. He doesn't write them ahead of time. He writes them, leading into the weekend. And so for us to have to anticipate, it's impossible for us to know what he's thinking. So we have to plan our songs with so here, what we used to do is we used to sit down and really try to plan our songs thematically. Let's do this, and let's do this, and this would be a great idea. Because when we look at it, here's our interpretation of what that says and what that means. And then we would get to the sermon, and it would be like, that had nothing to do with what he was preaching about. Like, he went a completely different direction. So it's impossible for us to really sit down and think thematically what it is. There are some obvious ones, like Father's Day. Good Father. Duh. Like, it's a no-brainer, right? So we're doing that song this weekend. But there's other times where it's just like, we're just going to pick some songs. And if there's new songs that we want to incorporate, we try to get those in a few weeks, maybe in a row, and then take a break and bring them back. We spend a lot of time, multiple times throughout the year or a couple years, really thinking about the songs that we're singing and creating a list of songs to choose from that are, first of all, biblically accurate. There's a lot of songs out there that you just kind of go, I don't quite know if that's true, or I don't know if that's what we want to put on the lips of our congregation. What do we want our congregation to sing? What does this song fit what Hope is going through at the moment? So there's a lot of songs that we really try to vet when it comes to content, what it is that they're saying. Is there a lot of songs about, like, I don't really like to sing a lot of songs that are me focused, like I want to sing songs about God, about who he is, about what he's doing. Sometimes it's appropriate because the song about me is really about God. So we have to vet all that kind of stuff. So long story short, when we sit down and we plan songs, it's Alyssa and I do it for here in West Des Moines. You do it for Revive. I do it for Celebrate Recovery. It is a feel of how the songs go together, how we take the set list on a journey. Where are we going with the words and the songs and the themes? And our response song at the end of the sermon is usually trying to be a little bit more specific when it comes to how could we summarize this thought maybe in a song. But the other ones, it's more of like putting the songs together that make sense. And also, if we want to get you familiar with something, we're going to repeat it a couple times, maybe in a week or 2 weeks in a row or so. That being said, there are times where our phones ring at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning where Mike goes, and I always know, and first of all, his alarm or his ringtone on my phone is, that's his ringtone, because why else would he be calling me on a Saturday morning? And he's like, hey, Perry. And I'm like, what do you want, Mike? Anyway, but sometimes he'll get an idea, and it's just like, yeah, we'll make it happen. We always try to say yes. Is it convenient? No, we had rehearsal Tuesday night. We're going to make it work. And so the band will get a text, hey, guys, we're going to do this. And we always make it happen. And it's always the right call. Because when he's writing his sermon and something happens, it's the right call. And so that happens, not a lot, but enough for us to just know when it happens. We just try to make it happen. So.
Yeah, that's good. I would add on to that P. Mike story. Like this past Easter, you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things. He told us Good Friday.
Yeah.
So the day before all of the Easter services, he's like, hey, this song would tie in so well to my sermon, my message. And I remember he came up to each of us individually, and then we text each other like, hey, did Pastor Mike tell you this?
Yep.
And we're like, yeah, who's going to sing it? We don't know. We'll figure it out. So it's always about us being open.
I sang it a lot lower than you just did.
Yeah, but it sounded, it was amazing. It's beautiful. But yeah, for me, for Revive, I'm very similar to how Perry and Alyssa orchestrate and facilitate the worship song choices. For me, response, I really do try to be super intentional with response to the Bible verse and to the sermon title. Jamie will have that up for me. But for the worship set, the first 2 or 3 songs, as long as they're theologically correct and they're worshipful and they show reverence to the Lord, I really don't necessarily care about flow or anything. I just kind of pick those songs and just go. Because I just feel like the whole point of us being at church is to point ourselves and our vision, our sight, to cast our gaze to Jesus. And I feel like if we are making the right choices by picking the right songs that help us do that, BPM, style, it doesn't really matter. For me, it's all about fixing our eyes on Jesus. And so if the songs do that already, it's going to go well. I try not to strive and try to force something, especially when song choices. So that's how I do it at Revive. Yeah.
And I would say there are times where we think, okay, we're just picking songs or whatever. But there are times where it is like the Holy Spirit has definitely been at work, because it's like the preacher would say, I didn't even talk to them about what I was going to do, and the songs line up exactly right. So we don't stress about it. We just say, here's what we think is gonna be a good set, and 9 times out of 10, it's perfect. And for Celebrate Recovery, I'm a little selfish. I just kind of pick stuff I like to do, and it's a lot of fun. So that's kind of how I do that one. Like, what do I want to do? I get to pick what I want to do. And so CR is a great place. If you ever come to Celebrate Recovery, Thursday nights, 6:30 in there, it's a blast. People are just so, they celebrate, not just the recovery, but they're celebrating what God has done in their life, and it's just powerful. So come check it out. You don't have to be in recovery to come. So.
Speaking of kind of song choice and then Hope Worship as a brand, what was the decision-making process to kind of create the brand, and what's the songwriting process look like, and how's God involved in all of this?
Again, over the course of 18 years, this has looked so different. I think for me, it's something that I've always wanted to see happen, us to write music and to write our songs. And I wrote some songs back in the day, and even with a lot of you may remember when Matt McNeese was here, he and I wrote some stuff, and then when Kim Hensley was here and Langbecker, we all wrote some stuff. I mean, it's always happened in these pockets of where we've been at here at Hope. And I think for us to really want that is a godly thing. We wanted to write songs for hope, from hope, for hope. And it never really seemed to be the right people. It never seemed to be, and this is nothing against anybody, it just, the setup and the format and the way that it worked never seemed to work until we had the right people on the bus. So kudos to Isaac for being here. Isaac is a huge, he's one that really saw the vision and really worked to make it happen. And Jacob and Alyssa and myself and even Zoe, when she was here, we spent a lot of time just writing together. Well, that's not true. We spent a lot of time writing separate. So kind of the process that we've fallen into, and we're always revamping that process. We're always trying to be more collaborative when it comes to songwriting. Because we find when we see, when we print our charts for the weekend, it says, so-and-so song, and there's like a minimum of 4 people on those songs because everyone's being collaborative. And so the way it works now is Jacob, Alyssa, and myself will kind of have ideas. Jacob's got, 3 or 4 over the last, few weeks that has really felt good about. I've never heard them. I don't know what they are. And so we spend time working on what we think is good, and then we bring it to the group collectively, and we say, here's a song, and we just sing it. Or we sing it into our phone, very, very rough, and we say, let's use, for example, Overflow. Okay, that's like the one that's the big hit around here, right? They used it for the building campaign. Everyone heard it multiple times a day. So Overflow was one. Do you know the story? You know that history of that song? You probably know it better than I do.
I don't really know the history, but I understand the producing of it. Like,
right.
The first iteration of that song felt so sad.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like super somber, super moody. It was like Isaac playing a really slow piano, and Alyssa was like, that's just not the vision that I feel like God has given to me for this song. And so Isaac was like, all right. And then he came up with the bridge chord progression to the flat 7, and then really just elevated it. But I don't really know the story behind it.
Okay, well, that was a bad example then. So I think, I don't think we really need to dive too deep into it. But the whole concept of where the songwriting happens, again, we want it to be about hope. We want it to be a song that we want. There are songs that there's one that we just did that I wrote, and I was just like, I don't feel like it's going well. I don't think we should do it anymore, so we're not going to do it anymore. And it's just like we have to hold it very loosely. Like I bring a song to the group and be like, what do you think about this? And Jacob and Alyssa might be, And I'd be like, but, because it's my baby, it's the thing. But we have to hold it very loosely. Like that song to me, it just never, I liked it, but it just never felt like it took. And so I had to be able to say, it's okay, just let it go. We may never do it again. It might have run its course. But when we find a song, we do it here on weekends. We usually say, hey, this is a new song, so you guys, we know you're not going to sing it right away because it's new to you, and it's still pretty fresh to us, and the band just learned it Tuesday, so we're working it out. And again, it's one of those things where we want the song to fit with where Hope is and what we're doing. The goal is never, look at how many clicks we've gotten on YouTube. That's never the goal. Isaac does a good job of seeing that and informing us when it's exciting. It is great to see, but that's not the goal. The goal isn't for us to, make YouTube videos. The goal is not for us to see how many streaming platforms is on or whatever. The goal is for us to produce music that is to reach out to the world. It goes back to the vision statement again. Everything we do, what songs we write, we want that to be, the heart of it has got to be behind this church first. And here's the thing, if you guys sing it and it's a good song, then it's going to catch on other places. It is exciting to see so many people listen, and like a lot of the YouTube videos, Isaac does a great job of putting those together, and he does a great job of like producing the albums and stuff. We do get some outside help for some of that because we just can't do it internally. We can't take it all on, but it's exciting to see, and it's, you guys you own just as much of it as we do, because we're doing it with the heart of this church in mind. So yeah, we celebrated that Hope Worship's got a lot of followers and blah, 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 but you guys can celebrate in that too, because you're a part of this process. If we just did it just to do it and leave the church out of it, I hope it would fail, because that's not the reason that we do it.
100%. Yeah, I would agree. I think, Isaac Rodriguez, he has been a huge component and almost the vision caster, the vision carrier for Hope Worship for this past season, at least, since the 4 years I've been here. I think it's appropriate to tell a story. I'll tell it. Isaac's my best friend. He's like one of my brothers. So the very first worship night that we had in 2020, what is it, 2021, 2022? 2022. Isaac, God bless his heart. I'm so glad he did this. But he went behind everyone's back and was like, Pastor Mike, we got to have this worship night. We got to have this live recording. I just feel like the Lord gave me a vision, and that millions of people were worshiping with us to the songs that we are going to write. And that's what he told Pastor Mike, and Pastor Mike said yes.
Backstory, I have been trying that for years. Hey, let's do a worship night on a Saturday night. And there was always a hesitancy because he didn't want to compete with weekend worship. And so frustrated Perry for years was trying to, he would be like, well, let's do it after service and let's do it on a Friday night. And it just never seemed, I knew that Saturday night, taking a Saturday night service to do it was the right call. So then when Isaac's like, yo, I went and talked to Pastor Mike and we're going to do a worship night on Saturday, my first reaction was, are you kidding me? Like, I've been trying this for years, but it's amazing. Again, it was the right person on the team. Like, yeah. If Isaac hadn't been here to ask the question in the right way or have really the influence, that's what Isaac has, is influence. And I don't know if it's the passion that he has or that sweet Dominican accent, you just can't say no to Isaac. So anytime we have something that we want, we send Isaac.
Yeah. He's the voice.
Hey, Isaac, will you go ask Pastor Mike, or will you go ask Ganeri? And he was like, yeah, I got it. And he'll come back, and he'll be like, they said yes. And
all
we're
good
like,
news.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to take over.
No, you're good. So Isaac went behind everyone's back. He got the approval, but production didn't know. Alyssa and Perry didn't know. Really, the only person who knew about it was me. And so I just remember planning it. It was so stressful because everyone was a little bit ticked off at Isaac because it's a big night. It's a lot of planning that needs to be done. And I think it was like 3 weeks out that we decided to do it.
Yeah, it was quick.
It was very quick. And it was the weekend of Palm Sunday. And so there's a lot of working parts. There's a lot of moving parts. And so that was the very first worship night. And since I've been here, at least. And I think it was from that moment that all of us got a glimpse of what the Lord promised you with your heart, that posture of like, God, I really yearn for this here at Hope. Why can't we do it? And for me, that first night of worship in 2022, it really opened my eyes to see that this is God's calling for us as a team. You know.
And I don't think that the church was ready for it when I wanted it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. I know Mark, he and I, he's been around, about as long as I have here doing worship, and we we just kind of had a little chuckle because we had this kind of worship night thing at a conference, and I actually have the video of that, and it's not fun to watch. We've tried it, and it just wasn't the right time, and I think it's all timing, and there's a little bit of a grieving process for me in this whole thing because of me wanting it so badly and me wanting to have, kind of the not ownership, but I wanted it to be something that I birthed or whatever. But in a way it was, because it's like David in the temple, right? Where it's like the temple's going to be built, but it's not going to be you that does it. It's going to be your son's going to build the temple. And, you're almost young enough to be you are young enough
Yeah,
to
I
be
call him my pops.
Pops. I'm Pops in the office, which sucks. But it's this whole idea of like a vision that God had and me being able to see it happen. Now, thankfully, I've been a part of it, but it just wasn't what I wanted it to be in the time frame that I wanted it. And seeing it being led by others is kind of like me having to have the attitude of I want Hope Worship to succeed far beyond what I had dreamed it to be. And Hope Worship never really was Hope Worship. Like, here's our little logo. That was a cool thing, and we needed that. That was a necessity to kind of push the brand out there and call it something, to have some connection to something. Does that make sense? And so it's bigger than I could have ever thought and dreamed. And I think we want it to continue far beyond when we're gone. Whether we leave this place or, 50 years down the road, we still want this to continue to perpetuate great music and to produce great music. Laying the foundation now, we have no idea where this is going. I mean, we're doing this on the fly. It may look like we know what we're doing, but we really don't. Like, there's a lot of unknowns, and we're still learning. This process has been fun, and it's been exciting, but yeah, we're still learning a lot.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. We're learning a lot, and this is what I would say to the songs that we're writing here at Hope Worship for this church, is that it's an offering. Like what Perry said, we hold it so loosely, where it's like, God, this is the song you've given to me to sing to you. Is this a song that you've given to us for our church to sing? And I hope that you can see that this isn't songs that Hope Worship is writing. It's songs that we are writing collectively, because we are in the same season of church that you guys all are. We're in the exact same place of like what God's breathing on here in this community. And so when we write these songs, just look at them as an offering to the Lord from all of us, from our stories, from our backgrounds, from our relationships, from how we talk to each other. There's a lot of times where I get inspired to write songs, worship songs, through the message, and I'll just write down a little note of what Pastor Jeremy or Pastor Mike or whichever pastor said something that inspired me. And a lot of the songs that we've written, that I have written, been a part of, have come from that place. Your Goodness, the latest single that just came out, that came from a sermon of Pastor Jeremy 2 years ago, when he said, God, I know you didn't cause it, and I know you're going to work it out for my good. When he quoted that verse from the Bible, I wrote that down, and I just remember thinking to myself, that is a song that I feel like there's many people in this church that they need to sing, and to remind themselves that God is working it out for our good. And so it happened, and now it's a single, and it's like, but the goal is never to have a live recording. Hope you guys understand that. The goal is to be faithful and obedient to God, and God tells us to sing him a new song. And I think it's super humbling to have a place in a church like this with you guys, that we have the opportunity to write songs to God that are fresh and new to our hearts, to our spirits, that can refresh us and rejuvenate us with God's word. So, yeah, thank God. Thank God for what he's doing here through our music ministry. It's not about us. It's not for our glory. It's all for God's glory and for his honor. So,
yeah, Holy Spirit's definitely leading the ministry, it sounds like. We could stand up here and ask a whole bunch of questions, but we're at 7:17, so we're going to flip it over for some discussion questions here at your tables. What was your worship experience like in different stages of life? And then kind of along those lines, how has it changed, or how have you grown in this area of faith? And then last of all, how does God play a role in your personal worship? If you have any questions that you would like to ask, I'm going to kind of throw it up, put them on the spot. But if you have any questions that you want to ask either one of them, find them afterwards or before or after a weekend service, and they'd love to dive into it a little bit more. So thank you guys. As Chris says, grace and peace, friends. Go be good to one another. Thanks.